Kelly Maria Ripa was born on October 2, 1970, in Stratford, New Jersey, a working-class town far removed from the glamour of Hollywood. Her father drove a bus and later became a union president, while her mother stayed home to raise Kelly and her siblings. There were no industry connections or family ties to show business waiting to give her a head start. She simply had a dream and the determination to chase it. Leaving college to pursue acting worried her practical family, and the road ahead was anything but easy. She spent years taking small jobs, appearing in commercials, working in the background, and facing rejection before finally getting her big break. In 1990, Ripa landed the role of Haley Vaughn on All My Children, the part that would establish her career. Although soap operas were sometimes dismissed by critics, Ripa treated the work seriously. She remained on the show for more than a decade, learning to perform at an exhausting pace, memorize huge amounts of dialogue, and arrive on set before sunrise. The experience shaped her into the performer audiences would later know. Soap television demanded discipline, speed, and consistency, and Ripa proved she could handle all three. That demanding environment also came with sacrifices. While other young actors might have viewed soap work as temporary, Ripa approached it as a profession worth mastering. She developed a reputation for being prepared, dependable, and unwilling to give less than her best. Those habits followed her into the next stage of her career. Her determination was also influenced by watching her father work a demanding job where reliability mattered more than glamour. For Ripa, showing up and doing the job well became more than a professional habit. It became part of who she was. Then, in 2001, everything changed. Ripa joined the morning program that had long been associated with Regis Philbin, stepping into a position that came with enormous expectations. She had to prove herself live, 5 mornings a week, in front of millions of viewers. Instead of simply filling a seat, she built an identity of her own and eventually became one of the defining personalities in American daytime television. But maintaining that level of success required sacrifices that viewers rarely saw. In 1996, Ripa married her All My Children co-star Mark Consuelos in a surprise Las Vegas ceremony. Before long, the couple were raising 3 children, Michael, Lola, and Joaquin. Both parents were building demanding careers at the same time, creating a family life that required constant juggling. Ripa has openly discussed how difficult that balance could be. Her mornings began before sunrise, and there were plenty of nights when she had little sleep because of sick children or the everyday demands of raising a family. Yet the following morning, she still had to walk onto a live television set looking energetic, focused, and cheerful. Whatever had happened at home stayed behind the camera. Motherhood also brought its own emotional challenges. She has spoken about the guilt of missing school events because of work and the realization that her children were growing up while watching their mother maintain a polished public image. Millions of viewers saw the upbeat, funny version of Kelly Ripa, but they rarely saw the exhaustion, worries, arguments, or doubts that existed away from the studio. Now her children are adults, and each has begun building a life of their own. Michael entered the entertainment world, Lola explored modeling and writing, and Joaquin pursued acting. Ripa has every reason to be proud of them, but watching her children leave home also represents the end of a major chapter in her life. And while she was managing motherhood and a demanding career, another challenge followed her for decades: relentless public attention toward her appearance. Kelly Ripa has spent much of her adult life under a microscope. Tabloids and online commentators have repeatedly discussed her weight, diet, workouts, and appearance as though her body were a subject open for public debate. One particularly intense episode came after her husband posted a bikini photo of her, leading strangers to criticize the way she looked and questioning whether someone her age should be photographed that way. Consuelos defended his wife publicly, but the incident highlighted something larger. Ripa's appearance had become part of the public conversation whether she wanted it to be or not. The scrutiny wasn't limited to one photograph. For years, tabloids had analyzed her figure, speculated about diets, and questioned whether her slim appearance was natural or healthy. Ripa has repeatedly explained that fitness is important to her because she needs the energy and stamina required for her demanding career. She has described working out early in the morning and maintaining a routine around an already exhausting schedule. Still, explanations rarely stopped the commentary. Every photograph could become another opportunity for strangers to judge her appearance. She has also spoken openly about cosmetic procedures and treatments, acknowledging that years in front of cameras can influence the choices people make about their appearance. Rather than pretending she had never done anything, She discussed those decisions with unusual honesty. But even that openness points to a larger problem. After decades of being told that her appearance was part of the job, she still couldn't completely escape public judgment. Women in entertainment are often expected to look young and effortless at the same time. If they show signs of aging, they are criticized. If they take steps to maintain their appearance, they can be criticized for that too. Ripa has spent much of her adult life walking that difficult line in front of millions of people. Then came a different kind of pain, one that had nothing to do with ratings, appearance, or career pressure. In 2020, Ripa lost John Callahan, her former All My Children co-star and a close friend of almost 3 decades. Callahan died suddenly after suffering a massive stroke at the age of 66. Ripa later spoke about the loss on her live show, visibly struggling to hold herself together as she talked about someone who had been part of her life since the earliest days of her career. Their friendship stretched back to the soap opera set where Ripa was still learning the industry. Callahan had known her before the fame, before the daytime television success, and before millions of people knew her name. Losing someone connected to that early chapter of her life meant losing a piece of her own history. His death also came during the COVID-19 pandemic, when many traditional ways of grieving were disrupted. Funerals, gatherings, and physical comfort from friends and family were often impossible. Ripa had to deal with the loss while continuing to host a live television program and interact with an audience. That experience captured one of the strangest realities of her career. Even when life becomes painful, the show still has to go on. She still had to walk onto the set, greet viewers, make conversation, and create moments of entertainment while privately carrying grief. The connection between Callahan's family and Ripa's family made the loss even more complicated. Callahan's former wife, actress Eva LaRue, was the godmother of Ripa's eldest son, and the families had remained connected over the years. His death therefore affected more than one circle of people. Ripa even apologized to viewers for seeming distracted that morning, a small detail that revealed how unusual the expectations of live television can be. Even during genuine grief, there is still an audience waiting for the familiar version of you. 5 years later, another emotional loss hit the Ripa Consuelos family. In February 2025, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos said goodbye to Chewy, their beloved Shih Tzu who had been part of the family for nearly 18 years. Chewy wasn't simply a pet. She had been adopted through a segment on Ripa's television show in 2007 and had grown up alongside the family. When the couple announced her death, Consuelos explained that Chewy had stopped eating, become severely dehydrated, and developed neurological symptoms. They eventually faced the heartbreaking decision to let her go. Consuelos described it as one of the hardest decisions they had ever made as a couple. Ripa sat beside him as he spoke, visibly overwhelmed. Eventually, she broke down on live television and covered her face with her hands. It was a rare moment when the carefully maintained television persona disappeared completely. Later, through tears, she explained just how deeply Chewy had been woven into the family's history. The dog had been there through major milestones, including the years when her children left for college and returned home. Chewy had always been there waiting at the door. Calling her our steadfast companion captured more than the loss of a pet. Chewy represented an entire era of family life. Her death marked another reminder that the years when the children were young and the house was full were gone. Weeks later, Ripa shared another tribute, admitting that she had delayed posting it because doing so somehow made the loss feel more real. She described instinctively looking for Chewy and continuing to call her name. It was one of her most vulnerable public expressions of grief. Then, only months later, Ripa herself disappeared from the morning show. In the summer of 2026, viewers noticed that she was missing from Live with Kelly and Mark for 2 straight weeks. For someone whose professional identity had been built around showing up every weekday, her absence immediately stood out. Consuelos eventually explained that Ripa was recovering from gum graft surgery. The procedure involves a tissue graft and can require a painful and lengthy recovery. Viewers who had undergone the same procedure responded with messages of support, describing their own experiences and explaining how difficult the recovery could be. During her absence, guest hosts stepped in, including Kevin Jonas, Mila Kunis, Pamela Adlon, Scott Foley, and Sarah Chalke. Ripa, meanwhile, largely stayed out of the spotlight and did not provide a running commentary about her recovery. That silence was significant. Ripa has spent decades sharing pieces of her life with the public. Viewers have become accustomed to seeing her react to events in real time, joke with her husband, and talk about the details of her daily life. When she disappeared without offering constant updates, it created an unusual sense of distance. It also revealed the limits of the relationship between a television personality and an audience. Viewers can feel as though they know someone because they see that person every morning, but that doesn't mean they are entitled to every detail of that person's private life. For Ripa, choosing to step away and recover without constantly explaining herself may have been a rare opportunity to establish a boundary. After decades of sharing her life publicly, she was allowed to simply disappear, heal, and return when she was ready. Her absence also demonstrated how deeply her identity had become connected to reliability. 2 weeks away from a daily program wasn't simply time off. It meant temporarily stepping away from an identity she had spent decades building. At 55, her body forced her to do something she had spent much of her life resisting: stop and recover. Eventually, she returned to the show, but the experience served as another reminder that even the most dependable public figures are still human. So where does that leave Kelly Ripa today? She stands at a very different point in her life than she did years ago. Professionally, her career remains remarkably stable. Personally, however, the world around her has changed dramatically. Her children are grown. The family dog who had been part of their lives for nearly 2 decades is gone. A close friend from the beginning of her career is gone as well. And after years of pushing through exhaustion and demanding schedules, her own body has begun reminding her that rest and care matter too. There is something deeply human about this stage of her life. Ripa built her reputation around showing up for everyone: her audience, her career, her husband, and her children. Now she is facing a period defined by change, empty spaces, and the realization that not everything can remain the way it was. The rooms where her children once lived are quieter. The door where Chewie used to wait is empty. And for perhaps one of the first times in decades, Ripa has had to allow herself to stop and put her own recovery first. None of this resembles the dramatic tragedies often associated with celebrity stories. There is no single scandal or spectacular downfall. Instead, her story reflects something much more familiar: the gradual accumulation of loss, aging, change, and new chapters. At 55, Kelly Ripa isn't broken. But beneath the bright smile and quick jokes is a woman who has experienced more change and loss than her television persona might suggest. Her story is ultimately a reminder that the people we invite into our homes every morning are living complicated lives beyond the camera. The audience sees the smiles, the jokes, and the polished moments, but there is an entire life happening outside the frame. And perhaps that's the most revealing part of Kelly Ripa's story. After decades of being expected to show up for everyone else, she is entering a stage of life where she may finally have more freedom to decide when she wants to show up for herself.